In Los Angeles, the City of Angels, a 15-year-old African-American girl enters a supermarket. Grabbing a bottle of juice for herself, she puts it in her bag and walks towards the counter to pay for it. Unfortunately for her, the cashier thinks that she's trying to steal it. The overly vigilant, anxious, and prejudiced woman suddenly takes out a gun, and in an attempt to intimidate the teenager, loses control of the weapon. The shot is fired, and the girl is murdered. As the chaos erupts, we are introduced to two main characters in the story. The first is Millie, a young woman from LA, who runs an enormous foster family all on her own. Another one is Obi, a man who hates the fact that his house is sunk in commotion day and night. He has a gun too, and you better not break his window. After the trials of the murderer, she wasn't even sent to jail, and to add to everything, the famous Rodney King incident happens. 4 policemen brutally beat up King after the long chase, and once the footage of their inhumane act is leaked, the City of Angels is thrown into riots. The story, however, begins 7 weeks before the riots. Following Millie throughout her long morning routine, we see her sharing her love equally with her children. One of them, Jessie, is an enormous help to her. When Millie goes to deliver her homemade cakes, it is Jessie who helps others get ready for school. Speaking of the school, it is a place of diversion and chaos as well. Following Rodney King's incident, a strong reaction is erupting from here as well. There is one girl who's especially active in this regard. Her name is Nicole, and as it seems, Jessie is very fond of her. Arrogant, courageous, and funny, she is quite an individual. The next morning is quite cruel for the young man. As the most peaceful events unfold themselves in front of him, however, he manages to go through them without a scratch. At first, all the kids in the house demanded breakfast for him. Then social services called, telling him that one of the kids from the foster family, Jordan, must be taken to his mother again. As it turns out, the woman was recently freed from jail. Oh yes, and to add to everything, there is a fire in the kitchen. After everything is taken care of and nobody is hurt, the news is conveyed to Millie. The girl falls into intense sorrow immediately. Jordan is like a biological son to her. She's been raising him since he was a little boy, and now he is just being taken from her. The process of saying goodbye is heartbreaking to watch. In the next scene, Millie is affected by the weight of the moment when, suddenly, she notices a kid being held up by the police. She has seen enough of this. Stopping the car abruptly, she gets out and starts beating the kid up as if she were his mother. The police just stand by, taken aback, while the lady in front of them leads the kid towards her car with slaps and curses. Naturally, the rage fades away as soon as they drive away. The boy, whose name is William, is the son of Millie's neighbor. She's in jail, and so Millie will be taking care of him starting today. This new addition to the family is great for the kids, but soon it causes a disagreement between Jessie and Millie. As the young man says, she shouldn't be taking every kid she finds on the streets. As it turns out, they had an agreement not to bring anybody in anymore, but William just couldn't have been left in the streets. The next morning, we finally understand Jessie's point very well. When the family stops at a grocery store, they encounter an unusual situation. The owner of the store is harassing an African-American woman who's acting weird in front of his shop. Trying to protect the girl, William dashes out of the car and engages in a fight with the owner. His anger is uncontrollable. His entire attention is fogged and directed only on the objective ahead, to beat up the shop owner as badly as possible. As always, the latter locks himself in his store, so nobody will get their groceries this morning, including Obel, who is particularly upset by the fact that he won't be able to drink his beer this morning. I know what you're thinking. White problems? Seeing that it's all Millie's family's fault, he threatens to call the social services, and listening to classical music, drives away. The incident was frustrating enough, but the arrogance of this man enrages Millie even more. Still, she goes about the rest of her day as if there were no incidents happening this morning. Soon, we'll learn why she's like that. Inconveniences are happening every day in her house. That evening, too, Jessie is forced to calm down William's anger on 2 different occasions. At first, the aggressive boy becomes enraged after watching one of the Rodney King trials. Then he is fed up with the commotion outside. The white neighbor is casually throwing stuff out of his house. Police are stationed outside his house, and the shooting and screaming fill the entire neighborhood. Only God knows what the reason is for all this. In any case, when Millie arrives, Jessie leaves. Fed up by the chaos of the house, he is angry at her mother for bringing in additional trouble. In the next scene, he is at a supermarket when, suddenly, he watches as his love interest, Nicole, tries to shoplift the least nutritious products. The cashier chases her down outside, but he is stopped by 2 men who threaten him with violence. Jessie comes outside as well, so when the cashier gets back inside, he spectates as one of the men tries to flirt with the underage girl. The man is overly graphical with his descriptions of what he is going to do with her, and the girl doesn't respect him at all. She's so drunk that initially, it almost seems as if she will actually follow them, but suddenly, anger erupts from her. In the blink of an eye, she becomes a completely different person. She is throwing hands at the pervert when Jesse decides to finally intervene. Getting in the middle of the two parties, he hears sirens going off from behind. The two men are scared away, while Jesse and Nicole are left alone in front of the grocery store. As it turned out, the cops weren't called for them. The police officer has stopped a random passerby, so the boy and the girl can actually leave, but to Nicole, it isn't the best idea. As it turns out, she has everything she owns with her. With nowhere to go, she is desperate to find a place to stay, so without thinking much, she casually opens the door to the police car and seeks comfort in the back seats. Naturally, Jesse tries his best to make her leave, especially after seeing a gun in the officer's hand, but the girl won't budge. She cannot stay outside. It is much more dangerous than jail for her, so she will stay. And if she stays, Jesse stays too. When the officer catches a glimpse of them, he kicks them out of the car. He has his hands full with the person in the other car, so he has no time to deal with a random shoplifter teenager and his friend. In the end, Jesse will have to do something he scolded his mother for this morning. He will have to bring in a new kid at home tonight. When the duo arrives at the house in the next scene, the drunk Nicole is taken upstairs by William and Jesse. William is delighted to see her bra when the girl takes off her clothes after seeing her bed. The boy seems okay with taking advantage of the drunk Nicole, but Jesse doesn't let him do that for long. Throwing a blanket over her, he turns the lights off and goes to sleep. As was expected, Nicole scarcely remembers a thing from last night when she wakes up. There are only two images in her memory, and nothing more: the big bright moon, and Jesse, her savior. At this moment, the young man receives a gift for his last night's kind efforts. As the blanket is thrown over his head, he is gifted a kiss. Naturally, Jesse is over the moon throughout the entire morning. Introducing Nicole to the family, he doesn't even get mad at William, who, as it happens, is currently trying to encourage the kids of the family to steal some food. Later that day, Jesse takes Nicole to William's mom's house. The place is empty, so the young girl can stay here as long as she needs to. Meanwhile, William and the kids are shoplifting as if there were no tomorrow. Their honorable brother washes cars for extra bucks, but the others are having a hell of a time with the goods that they have stolen. Soon, thanks to William's skill, even a PlayStation appears in the house, so naturally the kids begin to love him. As family life continues without any interference or resistance to William's terrible habit, Jesse continues to take care of Nicole. Unusually enough, the toilet is stolen from the house Nicole is staying at, and the young man manages to return it. It is at that moment that Jesse sees that Nicole has some company. William, together with two of his friends, is watching the trials on TV. For the first time here, a glimpse of future riots is shown. The young man exposes a gun out of his waist and indicates that future violence is inevitable. Remembering how the teenager was murdered, he points the gun toward the ceiling in the next scene and blows a hole into the ceiling. Jesse shouldn't be so upset though. This will never happen again. Soon enough, the idea to slay the murderer of that African-American girl is put forward. William thinks that it will be a perfectly good solution, but Nicole has a better idea. They could just blow up her shop. Naturally, Jesse hates both ideas, but knowing that he can't do anything about them, he chooses to accept the second one. In the next scene, during a police chase, Nicole's fence is smashed by a police car. There is no doubt that nobody will care to take care of it. The smell of unfairness is filling the air again. Later that night, the group of young people, including Jesse, Nicole, and William, sneaked inside a police station. As an answer to the smashed fence, they want to destroy some tires. To be more precise, everybody but Jesse wants to destroy some tires. The young man is just here to look after his love. Soon, when shots are fired, the kids manage to run away, but they do not leave without a scratch. William gets shot. Thankfully, the wound wasn't fatal. In the next scene, the young people regroup at Nicole's place, when Jesse tends to it. As he goes about his business, he scolds everybody for trying such a reckless thing. William is in a great mood, but he will still have to go to the hospital. That evening, Obi gets fed up with 3 kids screaming and playing in front of his window. Frankly speaking, Millie gets fed up with them too. She has been calling them to have dinner for a very long time now. But once the neighbor screams at her to take care of this problem, she screams back with doubled resentment. This is the kind of relationship they have with each other. When the kids finally appear at the doorstep, Millie decides to discipline them by closing the door in their faces. Of course, she means to open it up again in a minute, but she wants the kids to think that they've been thrown out for good. It will surely teach them a great lesson. Unfortunately, however, When the door is opened again, there are no kids waiting to be let in. The kids have vanished. Terrified and feeling guilty, the mother runs around the streets in search of them, imagining the worst scenarios when, in fact, her kids are in the most unpredictable place. They are with Obi, crying their eyes away on his couch. The man's ordinary resentment seems to be gone now. Confused, he tries his best to calm them down. He even turns the TV on to offer some entertainment, but he's so excited that he fails to acknowledge what is being broadcast. It is Rodney King's trial, of course. It will surely calm the kids down. When the TV turns out to be a massive disappointment, Obi addresses the most obvious solution, the one and only pizza. Unpredictably enough, the four had a great time together after that. The man, who turns out to be a writer, shows his materials to the kids, puts on some funky music, and has a hell of a time. The cheerful cries are coming from outside his house when the desperate mother passes them by in the next scene. Running upstairs, she bangs on the door and tears up immediately after seeing her kids. After apologizing for the bother, she dashes inside and embraces them all. She turns around to see the expression on Obi's face. There is no need to say this, of course, but still, the man won't be calling the social services on Millie. That night, the latter had a long and extremely vivid erotic dream starring Obi. The desire felt while sleeping underlines the lack of love and affection in Millie's mind. For so long, she has been doing nothing but distributing love. Perhaps the time has come for her to get some too. The dream was so naughty that the woman hid from Obi when she caught a glimpse of him in the window. This romantic detour, however, won't be continuing for long. Soon she receives a call from the school, letting her know that William and Jesse are not in school. The trial of Rodney King's attackers is over, and the verdict is not good at all. The four policemen were found not guilty on all charges, and as expected, violence is slowly erupting in the city. Two lines of events take place simultaneously. As Jesse hears gunshots nearby, he sneaks to Nicole's place, while his mother gets involved in a huge commotion to help out some kids who are being tackled by the police. As the handcuffs appear on the woman's hands and feet as well, the young man sees something extremely hurtful in the house. The door to the bedroom is open, and inside, Nicole and William are having sex. The outside world is apocalyptical enough, but inside the young man's ears right now, the world truly ends. Limping outside, he breathes heavily as the couple in the room is interrupted by a group of young men, calling William to immerse himself in violence as well. Very soon, the latter is ready to go, and the group of bloodthirsty men leave the front yard. Nicole is with them too, trying to make them reconsider, but her attempts and efforts seem completely futile. As Millie is put inside the police car with another man, William, and his group pick up one Asian guy and go after him. As expected, Nicole and Jesse try their best to stop them. But soon everybody is running after this Asian man. Nicole and Jesse want to save him, but William is going for blood. As the girl tries to interfere with his rage, the aggressive young man throws her to the side of the street in a very violent manner, and for the first time, Jesse loses his temper completely. Rage is accumulated in his heart, and getting a piece of shattered glass from the ground, he puts the sharp edge into William's stomach. It is immediately afterward that he comes back to his senses. Trying to get some help, he runs into the streets and finds a public phone to call an ambulance. Meanwhile, something very dangerous is happening in the police car. The man Millie is with tries to set the vehicle on fire, so both he and Millie are thrown off the car. In a few moments, she is picked up by none other than Obi himself. He is quite cheered to see the woman in this state outside, but he is of course determined to help. Meanwhile, the ambulance is too late to save William. Getting terrified that he might become a murderer, Jesse calls 911 again, but gets an answer that the ambulance is overworked. There is nothing they can do to help the kid in this moment. Horrifyingly enough, Millie finds the first floor of her house empty after arriving there. All her kids, apart from one girl and two toddlers, seem to be out in search of a good time. While this is happening, Jesse decides to take the situation into his own hands. Finding an abandoned car in the street, he gets inside and uses it to drive William to a hospital. The rioted city is covered in fog, street signs are gone, and it is almost impossible to get to any useful location at all. As they drive through total chaos, Millie falls into panic. Her kids are crying for food, her boys are all missing, her hands are cuffed, and on top of everything, her house decides to be infected with creepy crawlies just at this moment. Everything is just perfect. Thankfully, Obi is here to help. Bringing in some tools to break her handcuffs, he manages to free her, but is left alone to watch the kids immediately. This doesn't mean that Millie is not gratified, of course. She just has to find her boys. Speaking of the boys, they are currently being lectured by a Burger King representative about a very interesting matter. The guy is explaining to the kids why they shouldn't burn down the restaurant. Thanks to his way with words and some hot burgers too, the kids are very convinced. Back to Jesse and Nicole. The worst happens in their car. They will no longer have to find a hospital in the City of Angels. William is deceased. As the kids of Los Angeles just can't get enough of the fire, riots continue to rage. In the next scene, Millie comes back home, desperate and out of breath, even though she is driving her car and not running. She's been looking for her boys all over the city, but there is no trail of them anywhere. She is conveying this to Obi when suddenly her daughter indicates towards the TV. There, it is shown how Millie's boys are having the time of their lives. Millie just can't take any more of it. Losing her consciousness, she drops to the floor. When she's back on her feet again, she gets in the car with Obi and drives to the shopping center where her kids are partying. Catching a glimpse of them among the shoplifters, the two adults get to detain them immediately, but suddenly, they are held up at gunpoint by an angry and resentful policeman. He has had an extremely tiring night, and being terrible at his job, he thinks of nothing better than just arresting everyone he sees. This time, however, he won't get a chance to do that. Since he is ordered to go somewhere else, he cuffs the duo to a nearby light pole. This is definitely going to take care of the riot that is going on. What a responsible officer! As Millie and Obi establish closeness, they try their best to get free. While smoking a cigarette, the man uses Millie's pants alongside his, makes a rope, attaches a boot to the tip of it, and throws it up. The rope makes a loop around the light, and the duo explodes in celebration. Meanwhile, Jesse and Nicole find themselves in a very dangerous situation. Near the car in which they mourn the deceased, a man is walking around with a shotgun, taking down the lights in his way. Thankfully, he goes away without noticing the kids. Back to Millie and Obi, the man finally managed to get free. Showing a unique combination of engineering and physical training, he appears in front of the woman and gives her an unexpected kiss. Later that night, when the break of dawn is already near, Jesse enters his home. Walking around the house, he distributes his love among the people who are sleeping, just like his mother. His sister had a wonderful time. She got to play with Barbies throughout the entire night. When the sun comes up, another car appears in the driveway. It is Millie and Obi who, while approaching the car that is already there, find the traces of the tragedy that took place last night.